Welcome inside episode 639 of the Locked On Senators podcast. I'm Ross Levitan on the outskirts of enemy territory in Winnipeg, Manitoba, alongside Brandon Piller up in the Blue Mountains. And if it ain't broke, don't fix it. That seems like the philosophy for DJ Smith as he puts together his 2 power play units heading into the season.
And Ross, we have a special guest in the YouTube era. Finally, we get Sportsnet's Kyle Bukauskas back on the show. So this episode gets a whole lot more handsome.
Oh, best hair in the biz. We'll get into all that. Plus, we've got a pretty good idea of who Ottawa will bring to Belleville for tomorrow night's game against the Toronto Maple Leafs. All that and more. This is the Locked On Senators podcast. It's your team every day.
Locked On Senators, your daily podcast on the Ottawa Senators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Senators your first listen on this Thursday, September 29th. We are free and available on all platforms, including on YouTube, where the best way you can help the show grow is to subscribe to the channel. We're so close to 4,000 subscribers, and please make sure you're hitting the thumbs up to like every video. It takes half a second and goes a long way for us with the algorithm. Pilsy, this discussion is going to go a long way because the Ottawa Senators have elected to start their 2-time 40-goal scorer on the second power play unit.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting because when he was acquired, I think everyone's first indicator, well, obviously playing him with Tim Stützle, so I'll say second thought that came to mind is, oh my God, having a power play unit with Norris on one side, DeBrincat on the other side, teams aren't going to know who's one-timer they need to stop here. So I think everyone's mind immediately went to that. But I actually think this is a bold and smart move by DJ Smith saying, hey, look, our top power play unit last season was very good. They clicked together. These guys have a great chemistry. Why would I break that up? Now, I know when you bring in a 40-plus goal scorer and a guy with a shot like DeBrincat, your first thought is let's get him as much time on the man advantage as possible. But I think people need to kind of change the mindset of how the power play is going to run in Ottawa this year. Good problems to have when you have a guy like DeBrincat being bounced to the second unit. I don't think it's similar to the goalie tandem, Ross. I don't think people need to look at the goalie tandem as here's the starter, here's the backup. These are their roles. It's a tandem. It's a 1A, 1B. I mean, you could even have 2 1As in Forsberg and Talbot. So I think a similar mindset needs to be kind of given to the power play units where it's like you have 2 1 power play units. Like, I think there's no reason why they can't split time as evenly as kind of face-offs and changes allow. Like, no longer are we going to see the days where it's that top power play unit up there for a minute and a half, and then the other unit just kind of dances around with the puck for 15 seconds or so and hopes to get one shot on net kind of thing. I think really we're going to see much more spread out time on the power play, and you don't need to worry about either unit. Like, that's the thing. Like, we can have these discussions and be like, how is DeBrincat not on the top line? But he's going to get his power play time, and either unit is going to be effective in my eyes.
Since Alex DeBrincat's rookie season, the start of 2017-18, he has 52 power play goals, good for a tie with Patrick Laine for 9th, 3 goals behind Austin Matthews for 8th. And although those guys did play, I think, about 30 less games, it still speaks to how potent that shot is on the power play. However, if you go with power play goals per 60 minutes of ice time, Pilsy, he's 22nd, still very good. Tied with Philip Forsberg, Jason Robertson, and Braden Point, just a smidge behind Alex Ovechkin. But you got to go all the way to the top of the list for Josh Norris, second, only behind David Pastrnak for most power play goals per 60 minutes, 3.63. Just a shade under David Pastrnak, who's led the entire National Hockey League. Okay, we kind of got into it before setting the stage, so let's do that now. If you're watching on YouTube, we'll pull it up. But DJ Smith is keeping together the first power play unit from last season. That sees Brady Tkachuk net front, Drake Batherson in the bumper position, Tim Stützle and Josh Norris on either flank, and Thomas Chabot controlling play from the top of the umbrella. We saw yesterday at practice, Angus Crookshank filling in net front. Pilsy, you love to see that. We've got Shane Pinto in the bumper position, Alex DeBrincat on the left side as a right shot, good for the one-timer, and Claude Giroux, the right shot, working his strong side on the other wing, Jake Sanderson up front. So what I'm noticing here, Pilsy, is they're also going to be able to rotate the puck to the shooter on opposite sides. Timmy on the strong side on his left wing on the top, Giroux on his strong side on the right, and then you set up the one-timer the other way. So there's going to be a mirrored effect from these two units, and I think that can only cause more confusion for the penalty killers. They got to know who's on the ice at what time, because that's the direction that the puck's going to likely end up going.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's just another thing to note about how much more effective both of these power play units are going to be. Last year, it was so obvious. Like, literally, their whole plan was, how can we get it to Norris to tee up that one-timer? Everything else is just setting up to that moment. That's all it was. Maybe Chabot tries to get a shot through from the point if Norris is covered. But other than that, they didn't have anything. Now, I think we're going to see a lot more creativity and a lot more plan B options try to sneak their way through rather than just have the big Norris shot. And like you mentioned, let's say the top PK unit is on for the opposing team and they're going up against Norris's line. Okay, let's watch that right side. We really got to be careful here. But let's say they get hemmed in there and the Sens are able to kind of switch power play units on the fly. Now the PK unit's going, oh crap, DeBrincat's now on the left side. We got to shift our focus over to the left side, like you're saying. So if you can hem them in the offensive zone and have one PK unit out there, I think you're going to have them scrambling just to try to figure out what the best way to try to shut down both these units is going to be.
So are you giving this a Pilsy seal of approval, or would you have liked to see DeBrincat up there? Because there's a very healthy debate going on online when it comes to how these units should be constructed.
I think the proper way to address this argument, Ross, is how would you change this then? So if you do want DeBrincat on there with Norris, which, hey, I have no problem having two bona fide snipers on your top unit, so that's fine. But then who do you move, and how do you make that change? What's your first suggestion?
I would probably say that my number one suggestion is to move up Alex DeBrincat, but I'm of the mind, and you say that assuming that I want to change it, Pilsy. I actually love keeping it the way it is because so much of that first unit ran through Timmy, being able to make that quick delay play or whatever it is on the half wall and open up space for Chabot up top. So I think when I'm looking at it from that perspective, I love keeping it the same. Like who are you going to flip in those same spots right now? If it's not Timmy off, like Giroux, you'd put him. I mean, like, that might be my one qualm. Like if Giroux would be in the bumper on the top unit, move Batherson down to the second unit, add a little extra playmaking down there. Not that Giroux can't, but I think Giroux's probably a little bit better, definitely more experience right around the net front, and he can pop out and shoot from anywhere. We've seen that on his highlight reel. So I think, and maybe it's a hot take, like Giroux to me on the bumper position on the top unit would be chef's kiss as well. But I love the way that they've done it. And I'm assuming Crookshank is probably a placeholder for Alex Formanton, or more likely even, DJ Smith said yesterday that he's not going to be shy to keep Brady Tkachuk out for the full 2 minutes. Now, we know that penalty killers are not immune to cross-checking in front of the net on the power play, so that's a lot of abuse to take if you're Brady, full 2 minutes of it each and every power play. But I think
I'm sure.
Especially late in the game when you're down a goal or whatever, like Brady's going to be out there for the whole 2 minutes.
Yeah, and that's the thing. That's a kind of discussion I was trying to start, Ross, is I think both of us are on the mind that you keep it like this. But the issue is when you try to get DeBrincat in there, then you're moving someone else out of there. And I think it's better to have it set up to have one elite sniper on each unit. That way, like I mentioned, you can try to force other creative plays to happen rather than just trying to tee up one of those guys and that being very obvious. And I think the thing, too, is you want to keep Batherson on that top unit. I like the idea of moving Giroux, and that's like, these are good problems to have, right? Like you can make these switches, and I can see them being effective both ways. But I think you keep Batherson on that top unit because he already has that chemistry with the even strength line of Norris and Brady. Obviously, that's good. Keep it rolling. But then we saw Timmy and Batherson have incredible chemistry as a pair together later on in the season when the lines kind of got shuffled around. So I want to keep that pair together as well. So I really think the way they have it set up is the way they should start. And if issues start to come, or maybe that top power play unit just doesn't have the magic like they did last year, then you can look at making some changes.
Well, let's get your opinion. Hit us up in the comments on our YouTube page. We'd love to have a discussion. Let us know why and who you'd want to move on the first unit, the second, or is there even a guy who's not getting an opportunity who you think he just needs a chance and he'd be able to light it up on the man advantage? DJ Smith has made it clear that over the next 2 games, Friday in Belleville against Montreal, and then Saturday on home ice, the only out of 8 games, the only preseason game in Ottawa at the Canadian Tire Center, they're splitting up those 2 power play units. Therefore, the whole lines are jumbled. After our chat with Kyle Bukauskas, we'll touch on those lines and specifically one defenseman who seems to be pushing his way in to the top 6. But first, Pilsy, we were talking about Claude Giroux. Did you see the clips that Ian Mendez and Claire Hanna put out of him in the face-off dot teaching Josh Norris yesterday? He snapped him back 3 out of 5, going lefty over Josh Norris.
Yeah, and he was doing a similar kind of lesson with Tim Stützle in today's practice, and he was just showing him how to better kind of angle yourself. And I think what Claude was talking to Timmy about from that little video we saw, I think Ian posted it, Ian Mendez, is try to get like up and get leverage and then tie the puck up. And then once the puck is up, you have that leverage and just snap it back. I think that's what he's been working on there. And that's the thing. We talked about it so many times. And that's where I can really see the argument to get Claude Giroux on that top unit, switch with Batherson, because winning the faceoff in the power play for that first faceoff that you get automatically in the O-zone is so important. And now I know you can have Brady take those draws, and that's fine.
But also Norris. Norris is above 50%.
Yeah, that's true. But I mean, no one's better on this team than Claude Giroux.
Right, and he's a righty. And that's something else. Like Batherson's the only righty on the top unit, the way it is right now.
Yeah, that's a lot of left shots there. So that's the reason I think maybe you could see Giroux start doing that. Because, I am confident in Norris's ability, but you need to win that first faceoff. So if you have a chance to get your best faceoff guy there, that's ideal for me.
But who's to say it's not a 1A, 1B. So I think that obviously if the team draws the penalty when Timmy's line, or sorry, no, I shouldn't say Timmy's the one guy from that second, but when the Norris line's out there, they probably start the power play with the Giroux line. I don't think it's going to be set that the first unit has to come out over the boards to start every power play, but that's going to be so much fun to watch going forward. This whole team's going to be fun to watch, and we get into those storylines that Kyle Bukauskas is following. I will say, and everyone should get a laugh at my expense for this, -1 on the intro for me here. Early, no excuse, but early morning, right after the $6 beers at the Jets game. But we battled back in a hurry. Kyle is officially friend of the show territory, and we're gonna make sure to get him on more often. For what was 8:15 in the morning, his hair was 10 out of 10. So if you're listening to this, you got to either take our word or go check it out on YouTube. Pilsy, why don't you say a quick word from one of our favorite sponsors, and we'll get over to our chat with Sportsnet's finest.
Yeah, Ross, don't get too hard on yourself on the -1 there. It's not like people don't know how to find Kyle Bukauskas or where he works or anything like that. So that's one we'll let slide. If it was a Sens Central citizen and we're trying to get them some followers, you got to hit that one right. But I'll give you a pass on this one. It's preseason. It's preseason for all of us here.
Preseason for us, buddy. Absolutely.
However, it should not be preseason for you and your sports gambling habits, because it is always the on season with betonline.net, because it's not just hockey, Ross. They've got football. They've got baseball.
But we want you to go check out the player props, because there's some juicy ones for the Ottawa Senators. Why don't you tell these good people what you're going? Are you going over or under? Josh Norris, 32.5 goals.
Over.
Claude Giroux, 54.5 points.
Well, Ross, you guaranteed he was going to hit 1,000 this season, so that's 77 points. That's going to happen. So over.
I guaranteed it, eh?
Jesus. That's how I remember it.
They got DeBrincat at 36.5 goals.
Easy over. So those are the overs that you could definitely hit. And like I mentioned, sure, it's preseason, but you need to be in mid-season form if you want to hit, because once the season starts, I don't think you can make those bets. Like it's locked. So get your mid-season form betting and get it for the regular season. Get it all set and get your futures locked in now at betonline.net. And like I was mentioning, it's not just hockey. They got football, Thursday night football. My Bengals up against the Miami Dolphins. It's going to be a big one. They're wearing all whites, the Siberian Bengals. You got to bet on jersey games like that. Look good, play good. We love that here. And you got to check it out at betonline.net because they got all the latest odds, totals, player performance, props, and overs and unders, and lots of fun future bets to make. So check it out today, guys. Head to the website or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. It's betonline.net, where the game starts.
All right, let's get to our conversation with Sportsnet reporter and Hockey Night in Canada host. It's Kyle Bukauskas. All right, we're very pleased to welcome a friend of the show back. It's been way too long. You already follow him on Twitter. It's at Sportsnet Kyle, I believe. Yeah, SN Kyle Bukauskas. And he has been told he's the Tom Brady of Canada. The flow's looking great. Charles Barkley, stamp of approval. Kyle, welcome back to the show. How are you doing today?
It's been too long, boys. Great to be on with you. Ross, congratulations on the engagement. I just hope she knows what she's doing.
She doesn't. That's why I put a ring on it. Make sure you get it in there before she realizes.
Exactly. No, good for you.
That's awesome. I appreciate that as well. It's a great time of year with that. Get it not out of the way, but get the ring on her finger, and then we can lock in to a season of hockey. And doing some quick math on how long it takes to plan a wedding, seems like we'll be right in the middle of the off season for that. So the timing worked out great selfishly.
Yeah, Ross is one of those guys where he wants the contract done before the season starts. Once season starts, he doesn't want to have to do contract. He just wants to focus on podcasting. So he got the long-term extension done and wrapped up there.
Are you calling me Tim Stützle of podcasting?
I'd say that's quite the compliment if he is.
I was going to say.
It's no Tom Brady of Canada, but it's a good compliment for sure.
No, that's awesome. So, Kyle, what gets you out of bed in the morning for this job and going to training camp this year? What are you fired up about going into the season?
I think just the blank slate that comes with any team, and in Ottawa here in particular. Like, in years past, you were kind of, once you got through maybe the one or two big stories, you were really grasping at straws a little bit, simply because this team wasn't deep enough to really be in a situation where, okay, are they ready to contend? And I know last year, Pierre Dorion came out saying the rebuild is over. We all know how well that went. So I think, with the summer that it's been here, the additions that have been made, the players that have been locked up long-term, I just think there's a way different feel around here. And I was saying this before, I was at the Canadian Women's Open here in August last month, and the amount of people that I had conversations with saying, hey, I'm getting season tickets this year, or I've got half seasons, or I plan on attending way more games than I have in the past. Like conversations that I just haven't experienced in any of the previous 4 years leading up to this one. It's a way different feel around the city and the team right now. So that's the exciting part. Will it translate into a playoff team by the time the spring rolls around? I'm not convinced of that yet, but no question this is going to be an entertaining team to watch this year. So it's good to see things kind of get rolling finally here with camp underway.
Now, the Senators have had slow starts the last couple of seasons here, and we're hoping with the new additions in the offseason, some addition by subtraction also with some bad contracts getting moved out of the way here. How confident are you that the Senators can kind of flip the script on what's happened the last couple of years? And hey, they don't have to get off to an amazing start. They just have to get off to not a bad start. Are you confident that they can come out of the gates running here?
I am, and here's why. Like, you go back to the shortened season, and there's no secret, like, their goaltending was a real issue, and they were just a team that was still figuring it out in front of them. So it was a perfect storm in that sense. Last season, again, there were some goaltending issues early on, and that month of November, guys, like I'm sure you remember, like that was utter hell, I think, for the team. Like the COVID situation, like they were one of the first teams for the virus to really run through the roster, and how many call-ups they had, and just the how few regulars were in the lineup for games at a time. And that was also a month where I think they played like 16 games that month too. Like it was almost more than every second night. And so all those factors considered, they got absolutely crushed. And by the time December 1st hit, like their season was basically wrapped up and they were too far out of the mix already. So, knock on wood that doesn't happen again to them here this time around. I feel good about the Anton Forsberg, Cam Talbot duo here, at least to start. I think they'll at least in a position where, goaltending will give them a chance, and they're just a better team on paper, and we'll see if it translates to the ice.
I can't stop smiling whenever someone brings up November. We decided on December 1st that we were going to do a post-game show after every single one after watching what we saw last November. Now, you mentioned that the roster's more or less set this year. How much more challenging, if at all, does that make your job covering a 2-week-long training camp? Because I remember the days of, is it Abramov or Schlappick coming into the top 9, right? Like, we've come a long way since then. So what does it change for you on a day-to-day when it's not who's going to take the job each and every day?
Right. I think what's nice about this year as things are kind of getting, back to normal again, and we've got a little more access around the arena than we've had in the last couple of years. I mean, there's an opportunity to talk with more people away from the cameras, and to get an idea of what's going on, and just get to know some new faces or guys you haven't really spoke to in that sense, in that forum for, since 2019 in a lot of cases. So that's a good thing. And I do think, there's still just some question marks. You're right. There's not a ton of jobs up for grabs, but that fourth line is, it seems like every Canadian market, who's going to play on the fourth line? It's always a big story. But here there's some legitimate options, right? Like between Parker Kelly and, Mark Kastelik, and does Derek Brassard do enough to earn a contract here? And what does that mean for Dylan Gambrell and Austin Watson? There's even a guy like Angus Crookshank, I think could be, the Mark Kastelik of a couple years ago, that's just going to eventually knock the door down and earn a call up just with how he plays. And then on the blue line, I think there's still, one spot I think has yet to be, really solidified. So there's a number of players kind of in the mix for that as well. So that's going to create some conversation as we unfold here. But I think any year, by the time, the last few days of camp come, or at least in the middle, there's that kind of lull in the middle where you're beyond, like, everyone's excited to be back and everyone's in the greatest shape of their life. And like the last couple of days of, okay, who's making the final cuts, where, it does get a little long and you're having to really stretch what could be a compelling story. But I do love the fact that they're going out to Gander and Moncton for the final 2 preseason games. Should be some great atmospheres between those two places, and just a neat way to wrap up the preseason.
Yeah, we've got a bunch of fans out east that are very excited that the Sens are going to be playing closer to home, as usually they have to go to Montreal, Toronto, or Boston or something like that. So it'll be great. Even though it's preseason, it's still Sens hockey at home. Ross, you got something?
No, I was going to say, Kyle, that's about as far as home as possible from you. Gander, Newfoundland, 7,000 kilometers from Campbell River, BC.
Dave, you did the math, eh? Yeah, well, good for you.
Thanks to my friend Google. Quick apple for Google.
You didn't watch
Good job
yourself?
doing that before we guesstimated how many kilometers. We've had some geography misses on this show for sure.
That was with Alan, right?
Yeah, so we're getting
Texas.
Better here, that's for sure. Kyle, so a lot of fresh faces being brought into the Senators team. So I'll say, 4 players. I'll throw Jake Sanderson in there as well. Of the 4 new players, most impact coming to Ottawa, who do you think is going to have the biggest kind of push that helps this team get from where they've been the last couple of years to where they are now, between Jake Sanderson, Claude Giroux, Alex DeBrincat, and Cam Talbot? Which one of those do you think will have the biggest impact?
I want to say Alex DeBrincat, just because of his ability to score goals and to score a lot of them, right? Ross, we talked about this on the radio the other day, the fact that they were, minus 39 goal differential last year. I think this is a team that shouldn't have a lot of issues scoring this season. And, the real question is can they keep it out of their own net enough? But I think that's where we can see the impact, to have, 2 weapons, depending on how DJ wants to do his power play units. But in theory, where you could have, DeBrincat on one flank and Josh Norris on the other, two one-time threats on either side. You've got, a puck mover and Tim Stützle there, Tkachuk in front, and Thomas Chabot in all likelihood quarterbacking the thing. Like there's potential for a lot of damage to be done with that group if he decides to load it up. And if the chemistry can be found there between Tim Stützle and Claude Giroux, or if he ends up deciding to mix things up and it's a different look, I think DeBrincat's in a spot where he's he benefited certainly from playing with Patrick Kane for a number of years in Chicago, but you still got to be able to shoot it, right? And that guy can do it as well as almost everyone in the entire National Hockey League. So I think that's where maybe we could see the actual visual of maybe the biggest impact, and just the ability to score goals out of nowhere when offense at times with this team has been really difficult to come by the last few years.
So we know that all three of those players haven't played together, in DeBrincat, Giroux, and Stützle. How long into the season, if things aren't clicking, are we going to see the lead story on Sportsnet.ca? Kyle Bukauskas wonders, should DJ Smith break up the Timmy line? Like, realistically, how long do you give them to allow that chemistry to grow?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess it's a good question. Like, are they getting chances? Are they looking anywhere close to a line that's going to break out, or are they just not clicking? And I think obviously that would accelerate the timeline. But we'll see as preseason progresses here. I am pleased to see that at least DJ appears to be going, like, these are kind of the lines throughout training camp, and let's see them try to figure it out. Because I growing up in BC, there was like the West Coast Express line, right? Like Morrison, Naslund, Bertuzzi. Like, that was the line for like what felt like a number of years that was not touched. Barring maybe the occasional tweak here and there. But you just don't see that often anymore. It seems like there's always anytime there's a little bit of a setback, it's like, well, we've got to throw the lines into the blender. And I can understand that as well. But I just hope they at least get, as you mentioned, the fact that they haven't all played together before at any time, they get enough runway, at least for the preseason, to start the regular season, to try to find it before they finally decide if they have to make the decision to put someone else in there.
And I feel like up front, it's, for once, DJ has a roster where it's like good problems. Like, if the chemistry between that line isn't working, there are lots of other options, ways you can mix and match the lines to try to get something clicking. Whereas in years past, that wasn't really the case. Now, switching to the back end, though, they don't have that luxury. There's not as many good options to mix and match. Kyle, how important, or kind of what's the pressure on Pierre Dorion to go out and acquire another top four defenseman? Do you think that's something that needs to get done ASAP, or do you think he can kind of wait till the deadline and see where things are at then?
Yeah, I think, when the opportunity is there that makes sense, I believe he's someone, as we've seen throughout the summer, who will strike a deal when the right one finds itself. Like, I think it just speaks to how difficult of a move that is to pull off these days, where he hasn't hit really for the last 2 years. The fact that they need another top four in the mix. And he was able to do a lot of other really good things over the off season, but bringing in a top four defenseman just wasn't in the cards. I know, like, Jacob Chikrin's the big name there. I'm not convinced with the price tag that seems to be attached to what the return will have to be in order to acquire the player. I'm not convinced that's the right fit here in Ottawa. Just knowing what potentially they would have to give up to make that move happen. But I think in terms of who's here, there's a lot of pressure, because you look at somebody like Thomas Chabot, who has played minimum 26 minutes on average a night under DJ Smith. Those numbers got to come down a little bit. I think, like, he's got to be able to be a little bit more effective under less minutes and less hard minutes than he has been playing over the last 3 seasons. So where can you find somebody to relieve some of that pressure? Does Travis Hamonic fit in better than maybe we thought when they initially traded for him? We'll see. What kind of role will Artem Zub play? How many minutes can a Nick Holden play? How ready is Jake Sanderson once things really get rolling? But I don't want to put him into a position that could potentially hinder his development, given he's only 20 years old. That's, as they say, the one real pressure point that I think we've all talked about here as we've gone through. They're in great shape forward wise. They seem to have a good tandem in goal. The blue line is where the question mark is at. Is Nikita Zaitsev in the opening lineup when the season gets rolling in Buffalo? That unfortunately, those are the questions that come with, as you set out to try to add somebody to that top four, and you don't find that player. Looking at what they have left, there seems to be a lot more questions than answers still right now.
Well, one of the answers that Jacob Bernard Docker had the other day, he's like, yeah, there's definitely a spot open on the back end. I'm doing some quick math with the contract. So I was like, okay, well, they must have been told this then, even though
I think so.
There's 6, 7, if you count Eric Brandstrom, with guys on one-way deals going forward. Now, we're 2 weeks away from your first broadcast. It's going to be a Battle of Ontario, Hockey Night in Canada, the first Saturday of the season. You got any insider info of what we can expect, whether it's a story from you or I know Elliot Friedman and Jeff Merrick were in Paris for some content with Timmy. I don't know if that's coming out soon or what, but what's the plan for coverage this year when it comes to the Sens?
Oh man, I try like hell whenever I get the chance to work a Sens game to get as much good content in as possible here. So we still got some irons in the fire. We got a little ways out here yet before really start to formulate what I'd like to come to the table with and us as a group for that first Saturday night. But it's a great way to kick it off. I know it was the same deal last year, that first Saturday, Ottawa in Toronto, but this is a different look Ottawa team, I think, coming into Scotiabank Arena on the first Hockey Night in Canada of the season. And I just think that could be potentially a really good matchup here to kick things off, and potential for Ottawa to get some traction starting on the road. And all the pressure that's already on Toronto to be great. I just hope Matt Murray gets the start that night.
Well,
I know that'll be Toronto's.
I don't know if he'll play.
I know that'll be Toronto's third game of the year already at that point. They play Wednesday, Thursday to start. I hope Matt Murray gets the nod for that one. That would be great drama.
Yeah, that would be a pretty easy storyline to follow. Free idea too, just like a 30-second interview with Zub. The nation needs to see it. We in the regional sense understand how hilarious and solid defensively, not to say, but you need to get that out to all Canadians coast to coast. All
right, I appreciate that. That's a very good. Do
you want to write it down?
Yeah, I will. As soon as we're done here, I'm putting it on my dream board.
Kyle, we appreciate you joining us. SN Kyle Bukauskas. Final question from me. The Senators were 27 points out of a playoff spot. I think it was Washington that was the 8th seed last year. If they're going to make up some sort of gap like that, who's the one team that made the playoffs last year that you'd circle and be like, this is the team we're attacking?
I think Washington could be one. I mean, the fact that they got in with 100 points, they were 8th in the East. It's like, oh my God, I was reminding myself of that the other day, just how crazy that was. I think that could be one. I don't know. And I wonder about the Bruins. Like early on in the offseason, I thought they could be pretty vulnerable, but man, like with Bergeron back, bringing Krejci back, like I just being around that team a little while over a few playoff runs over the last few years, like you got a lot of respect for how that room operates and just the standard that they set for whoever comes in there to put that jersey on. I don't think they're going to let their level drop too much. So we'll see if they can withstand some injuries to start the year, and when McAvoy gets back in the fold. I wonder just how Washington's going to come out, just giving it's an aging group. What kind of a year Darcy Kemper is going to have there, playing behind that team as opposed to Colorado last season. I think I know they were the 8th seed, so it's an easy one to pick them, but I don't see the likes of Tampa, Florida, or Toronto falling off so much that all of a sudden they're within Ottawa's grasp. Maybe a team like Washington in that wild card mix could be one to potentially go at.
Yeah, I think it's going to be very interesting to see how things shift here with some of the rebuilding teams in the Atlantic coming up and out of that rebuild, the Ottawa Senators being one of them. Now, of those players that have been involved in the rebuild or new guys, who is a breakout candidate for you with the Ottawa Senators this season? I'm putting
it down on Shane Pinto.
Nice.
I thought, like, even to start last year before the shoulder injury, like whatever that was, the 3-4 games he played before he got hurt the first time, I'm like, he could have had like 4 goals in that span. He had so many good looks. He was all around it. The puck just didn't go in, and then he gets hurt, and his whole year was shot from there. I mean, you watched him up close and in person last night there, Ross. Like, I thought he looked very good. I think he could be someone that could emerge and start to show the rest of the hockey world this is a legitimate NHL center that's got some scoring touch and just a good all around hockey player that's got some personality, and I think he'll quickly become more of a fan favorite, I believe, as this season goes on.
Yeah, and you mentioned that small sample size at the start of last season. He was averaging like 21, 22 minutes a game. Like, it was him and Connor Brown that were leading the team in ice time among forwards. So I don't think it's going to take long before DJ starts rolling him out there 19, 20 minutes. It's just how, with Timmy now at center, how are they going to kind of give everybody their cookies at the same time? So
sure.
No, that's great. And this has been great too, Kyle. We appreciate you joining us, and we got to make this a more regular thing. We really do appreciate you, and we love watching you on Sportsnet and Hockey Night in Canada. And it's a pleasure to have you on. So hopefully we'll get to do this again soon.
No, it was my pleasure, boys. And it's been great to see, since I was on the first time, the way you guys have continued to grow, your reach, your audience has continued to grow, and you guys have stayed true to kind of your identities as people and your values as how you like to entertain, the Sens community. It's been awesome to watch, boys. So congrats on all the success so far, and keep it going.
Stick taps to Kyle for joining us. Fantastic conversation with him. Always a good time getting him back on Locked On Senators. All right, Pillsy, we're going to get to the lines in just a moment, but you had guessed that Elite Prospects was going to have the Sens ranked 11th in their organizational countdown. You were closer than me. I said 13th. They are officially listed at number 10.
Okay.
On their list. Now, do you want to quickly run through and see how much you agree or disagree with their order? No spoilers.
Lists, okay.
There are great write-ups, and we do want everyone to go get the premium Elite Prospects Rinkside account. I got to say, this is probably 5,000 words total, but we'll just run through the players because that's what we do here, and we get mad at lists. All right, you tell me right or wrong. Number 1, Jake Sanderson.
Yeah. I'll agree with that.
Number 2, Shane Pinto.
Yep.
Number 3, Ridley Gregg.
Yep.
Here's where it gets a little interesting. Number 4, Lassie Thompson.
Yeah, I mean, I
start disagreeing around here too, but that's okay. That's what it's for.
I'll sign on to that. Yep, I'm not mad.
Roby Jarventi at 5.
Ooh.
I know.
For me, in my mind, Lassie and JBD are handcuffed together, and whatever way you want to flip it is fine, but they're right together. So I'm not mad, but I don't necessarily agree with that one.
There's another defenseman between Lassie and JBD. But before we get to that, number 5, they've got Igor at number 6.
Yeah, and I feel like Igor and Roby are kind of handcuffed, so that's fine. I would say Igor is ahead of Roby right now, but Roby's still very young, and it remains to be seen how much potential he can eventually have. So that's all right.
At number 7, Tyler Boucher.
Okay, so that's actually higher than I thought they would have him. It seems like a lot of kind of the analytical approach online scouts really are kind of down on Boucher. So it's good to see him getting some better respect around the online community here. So I like that.
Number 8, Thomas Hamara.
Oh, wow. That's a little high. Even I'm a Hamara guy, but Hamara over JVD? Nah. I'm officially mad, actually. I'm mad now. You got me mad.
Number 9, JBD. So they even have him right there. And it's just like, no, come on. Especially, we're going to touch on JBD a little bit later on. But 9 for JBD is criminal.
Yeah, definitely criminal.
And I'm officially mad at this list because they have the Senators' top goalie prospect as Levi Merilainen at 10. Like, come on.
We love Levy, but it's Mads.
Mads isn't even close yet. Number 11, Jorian Donovan.
Huh.
Number 12, Zach Ostapchuk. Number 12.
Yeah, Ostapchuk's got to be ahead of Hamara and Donovan for me. Yeah.
Number 13, Angus Crookshank. He's going to make a lot of people respect the name a little bit more, but I understand why he is where he is.
He's at right now, yeah.
He hasn't played in a year. So, Pilsy, number 14, Mads Sogard.
The disrespect.
And I'm actually shocked they even included him because JD Burke wrote this. That's an awful pick. Number 15, Tyler Kleven. 15.
No, what it was Ridley. He had the big qualms with.
Yeah, I know.
Was it Kleven
well,
too?
they had Kleven as a do not draft.
Yeah, that's true.
And he went 44th overall. So,
and they traded up to get him.
Yes. Yeah. And remember, it was Russ Cohen, who also does Elite Prospect Works, who said JD absolutely hates Tyler Kleven. It's his least favorite player. So, anyways, there's your top 15 Sens prospects. But for write-ups of it, you can go check them out, eliteprospects.com. Okay, that's a little... We had to add that in. We had to. When we had the discussion about it the other day. So, 10th, though, with all the guys who they've graduated, 10th is pretty solid, I would say, especially for elite prospects who gives them a C every year after the draft.
Yeah, definitely. And this just goes to show you, like, right now, the NHL roster is poised to push for playoffs. So you've got a cupboard full of future assets that you can use to bolster this lineup even further.
And they didn't even have Philip Nordberg or Oscar Pettersson in the mix. They're disrespectful indeed when they have the 5th rounder in Jorian Donovan. So I don't know. I think
maybe they're just... It seems like they're looking into signings heavy here, right? With Hamara and Donovan.
Interesting.
That seems to be the outlier.
Yeah. Which one was the furthest off base for you?
Probably Hamara, honestly. And I'm a Hamara guy, but Donovan really shouldn't be on this list.
No,
I would say.
Completely agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, we got high hopes for him, and that was a great draft pick. And obviously, Sean Donovan being a part of the organization.
Yeah, for 136th overall, great pick. But solid, the 11th best prospect in the organization right now, he's not ahead of Tyler Kleven. He's just not.
No.
There's 0%. I'm most mad, though, like, Ostapchuk at 12. Like, I don't know. Anyways. Way she goes. That's
getting mad at lists.
That was getting mad at lists. All right, so tonight we will get the roster. You can follow us on Twitter at Sens Central. The show is on Instagram as well, lockedon.senators. We would appreciate if you took 2 minutes to go to your Apple podcast and just write down a quick review as well. That would be a huge help. 5-star reviews go a long way with helping us with the algorithm. We want to be your home for Ottawa Senators content 5 days a week. And we've also got bonus content coming this weekend. But this time, Pillsy, and the reason I'm bringing it up again is we want to let everyone know the audio versions will be posted. We've got Locked On crossovers every Saturday and Sunday for the next 3 weekends. We're going to hear from Locked On Bruins, Sabres, Red Wings, Habs, Leafs, Lightning, Panthers, and the Locked On Fantasy Hockey podcast. They'll help you out when it comes time for your fantasy hockey draft. So all that will be available. Please subscribe. It goes a long way to help the show. All right. These players, it can go a long way to help them make the team tomorrow night in Belleville, the friendly city, Pillsy. It will always hold a sacred spot in our hearts.
Definitely.
And this show. Remember our 401 West segment that we did once?
Yeah, we did once where when we were driving home from Belleville. So for those of you that don't know, Ross and I, we worked for the Belleville Senators for 2 seasons. We made the drive from Toronto to Belleville many, many times. And we were like, man, we're in the car for so long. We just watched the game. Let's just put the mic in the center console and we'll just record while we're driving. Yeah, we did that once or twice, and it was fun, but not exactly prime podcasting studio acoustics and setup there. As Ross is trying to like get around transport trucks while doing the intro
in the middle of January.
Yeah, we decided to switch things up for safety reasons.
For safety reasons, yeah. And I mean, at that point, we'd already driven 2 hours and worked 4, and then we're driving back. We needed our Wendy's numbers.
Yeah, I was gonna say you're trying to get the frosty in you while talking about prospects. Not ideal.
Well, let's talk about the lineup. We expect this to be the lineup. They were split into 2 groups today, so maybe I'm wrong, but one of these lineups will likely play tomorrow. The other one on Saturday. Let's go with Group 1 because they were on the ice first. Anyways, Norris, Tkachuk, Batherson, Stützle, Cruikshank, and Boucher is the second line. Ridley Gregg will likely make his preseason debut between Parker Kelly and Austin Watson. And then the fourth line, Rourke Chartier between Jake Lucchini and Jace Howerluck. On defense, Shabbat Zub, Holden, Jacob Bernard-Docker, Rubens and Gannett, and then Xavier Bernard with Ben Roger. Pilsy, we talked about how they were splitting up the 2 power play units. Do you like putting Stützle with the 2 youngsters?
I mean, I
Crookshank's older than him, but
yeah,
you know what I mean.
I was gonna say, I definitely like that as opposed to the other 2 possible lines he could be flanking. Right, it seems to make the most sense. I think these 3 guys all been on Locked On Senators podcast. Check out their interviews. Crookshank and Boucher multiple times. I think they could click together really well chemistry wise. I think people don't quite fully appreciate the offensive abilities Tyler Boucher has. So I think Stützle can set him up here. And yeah, I think then the rest of your lines all kind of make sense. I like Ridley Gregg in between Kelly and Watson because that would be where he would start if he got called up to the NHL, right? Like that's his most likely spot. So get a little familiarity there, see how things go. And that's going to be a tough line to play against.
Yeah, it certainly will. The one other note we want to touch on for this is Jacob Bernard-Docker playing with Nick Holden on the second pair. Does that to you symbolize that he's got the inside track now over Zaitsev, over Brandstrom, and over Lassie Thompson?
Yeah, I don't get into detective mode too hard here, but it's all preseason stuff.
Still September. Next week, though, we can.
Yeah, sure. October is when I put my Sherlock Holmes hat on and really get serious here. But for now, all we can really say is this is an indicator. Like, it can't be a coincidence that DJ Smith mentioned 5 of the defensemen are locked in. That's Shabbat, Zub, Sanderson, Holden, and Hamonic. So those guys are locked in. So that leaves basic, and we know the top 4 are locked. So Holden is the 5th defenseman on that bottom pair.
And DJ said he's playing.
Yeah, exactly. Whoever is playing with Holden seemingly has the inside track here. And for now, that's Jacob Bernard-Docker. And we talked about it. He seems to be of the 3, Brandstrom, Lassie, and JBD. JBD has had the best showing so far.
And we talked about it with Kyle, right? Like JBD in an interview recently was like, yeah, we know there's an open spot. And it's like, you got the second highest paid defenseman is not accounted for. But by all accounts, there is that open spot. The other group that practiced today. So Brassard, talk about getting a look. And I should say, Ridley Gregg has entered the chat for the 4th line center position where he's set to play on that line with Parker Kelly and Austin Watson. So we know that Kastelik, Gambrell, Brassard, they're all battling, and now Ridley Gregg's in the mix there too. But now Brassard's going to get a look at an offensive situation. He's practicing between DeBrincat and Giroux. Pinto, Mott, Joseph, that line just trying to build chemistry, keep them together. Yep. Kastelik, Reinhart, and Sokolov, that's a heavy line. Good luck playing against them on the forecheck. And then Gambrell gets the very lucky spot of playing between Jarventi and Scott Sabrin, Dal Cole, and Kyle McDonald. We'll see if he gets into a game, but at least he's healthy now. He was hurt in the rookie tournament, so he's practicing. On defense, the second group, Sanderson, Hamonic, Brandstrom, Zaitsev, Hetherington, and Thompson. We've also got Jacob Larson in the mix there as well. Any final thoughts here on this group?
I guess what would come out to me, Ross, is like you mentioned, Derek Brassard getting a big opportunity here playing in between DeBrincat and Giroux. Roby Jarventi playing with Gambrell and Scott Sabrin, that's a line that doesn't make sense to me. So I'm very intrigued by the fact that Dal Cole wasn't given that option, right? Because that's kind of a 4th line style thing. You would think Dal Cole, Gambrell, and Sabrin would be the right mix there. So what this tells me and where I'm kind of putting my signals up is that Dal Cole is out of favor here. Otherwise, they would have him playing on that line. So that's an interesting note for me there.
All right. Well, we'll find out. The only thing for me there is like Brassard's never going to play in a top 2 role in this thing. So wouldn't it make sense to move Pinto up and like try one of those 4th line guys in a more checking role?
Yeah, maybe, but I think really the idea here is we know the 3rd line is going to be Mott, Pinto, Joseph. Use every second possible to get these guys chemistry.
But then wouldn't you say the same about Timmy with his line mates?
Yeah, but they're focusing on the power play units there, which is hilarious, Ross. Before the pod started, we were chatting, and I was like, imagine they set these lines up for the power play. No penalties drawn in either game, and you're just like, oh man, now we don't get to see how this works. But I'm sure that won't happen. Tim Stützle often is getting penalties called against him because teams
drawing penalties.
Yes. Thank you. But yeah, it is interesting. And I think the Tyler Mott and Shane Pinto connection, they've been clicking. But Joseph didn't really seem to be in the right spots, and him and Pinto kind of bumped into each other a couple times. So it seems like there's a couple kinks for them to work out. So maybe now you're just trying to make Shane Pinto and Matthew Joseph mesh a little bit better. I think that's the idea there.
I think in conclusion to the power play discussion, we should say that things can change in an instant. I don't think it's worth getting super mad either way, but we do want your input. So let us know how you would
get a little
organize.
mad.
Not as mad as you can get at those elite prospects lists, though.
No.
Those are built to get mad at. Any final thoughts on this one? I'm excited to hear what people have to say in the comments about this one. And reminder, tell your friends, subscribe to Locked On Senators. When we hit 4,000, we will be announcing a giveaway, 2 100-level seats to the Ottawa Senators' first Saturday home game against the Arizona Coyotes.
The Josh Brown revenge game.
Oh, boy.
Look out.
Which team will Jacob Chikrin be playing on?
Yeah, maybe a hallway trade. That'd be awesome. Final note for me, Ross, is I got, I was going to practice this. I got new design up in the podcast studio.
Oh, sick.
I bought the poster from Doodling Daryl.
Go grab it. Can you pull it up or is it tied?
No, I didn't put too much work into putting it up there.
Okay, go grab it. Go grab it. That's for everyone watching on YouTube. And if you're listening to the show, what we did is Daryl's art, where it was the boots on the ground. The poster is here. It looks unreal. That's awesome. I was just describing it for the audio listeners. Got Marsh in there with the streets. That's amazing. Boots on the ground, October 18th, coming soon to a Canadian Tire Center near you. All right. That's it for today. For Brandon Piller, I'm Ross Levitan. A special thank you to Kyle Bukauskas for joining us. This has been the Locked On Senators podcast. It's your team every day.